These beings are in fact billions of years more advanced than our human species is here on our planet, both technologically and from the point of view of an energy source. We have access to communicating with extraterrestrial intelligent species who in fact have access to this capability to travel from one star system to another. Which means that we're potentially capable as a human species of acquiring the capacity to travel to other star systems and to have direct diplomatic and cultural exchanges with the members of these extraterrestrial civilizations, so that we can acquire the knowledge of what it is that they have come to know.
My name is Danny Sheehan. I'm a constitutional litigator who's worked some of the most important cases in modern American history. From Pentagon Papers, the Watergate scandal, to Iran-Contra. My legal career has led me now to this pivotal moment, as our human family confronts the implications of the existence here on our planet of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional non-human species. I will be your guide as we dive into the profound philosophical, theological, and public policy questions pertaining to the UFO phenomenon, alien life, and the citizen movement for disclosure. This is the Full Disclosure Podcast, coming to you from the New Paradigm Institute on SpectraVision Radio.
Israel has now assassinated, 2 days ago, the chief of staff of Hezbollah. He was killed with an airstrike in Beirut, Lebanon. The Israeli Defense Forces assert that he was in the process overseeing the rebuilding of the military forces of Hezbollah during the ceasefire period that has been established between Israel and the Hamas. The federal district court here in the United States has dismissed the criminal indictments that were brought at the direction of President Donald Trump by the Attorney General of the United States against James Comey and Letitia James. Both of these were federal charges demanded by Trump himself. The court has made a ruling that the assistant U.S. attorney that was appointed at the demand of Donald Trump was illegally appointed, and it was an abuse of federal executive branch power to appoint her for this prosecution. They're still not out of the woods. It's conceivable that these charges could be brought again and subjected to a more normal procedure for a criminal prosecution. The United States government has alerted all commercial air carriers now to be on guard for going into the airspace over Venezuela, that the United States has declared it to be a dangerous area now in light of the military activities undertaken by the United States government. The USS Gerald Ford, a carrier group, a battle group, has been ordered into the waters right off Venezuela by President Trump. They now have 7 major missile destroyers assigned to the task force with the USS Gerald Ford, and there are some 4,500 United States military forces now in the battle group, including 2,200 specially trained U.S. Marines, expert in amphibious landings. The estimate is now that this deployment of the USS Gerald Ford and these forces are costing the United States taxpayer $50 million a day. Most international experts are aware of the fact that This is not a military operation designed primarily to interdict the shipping of drugs anywhere into the United States, but is rather a military operation being ordered by President Trump to attempt to dislodge the government of Maduro. While this is going on, Russian drones have just 2 days ago killed 4 people and injured 17 in the Ukraine, while the United States is trying to negotiate a peaceful settlement to the Ukraine war now going on with the Russian invasion. And Donald Trump and the State Department have proposed a peace treaty that would, in fact, cede significant portions of the land area of the Ukraine to Russia that have been seized by the Russian invasion. And the Ukrainian government officials and military are refusing to date to accept that recommended peace treaty. COP30, the international meeting attempting to deal with global climate change, has ended, and there are still major complaints coming in over the fact that this annual gathering is not making any significant headway in reducing the actual amount of fossil fuels that are being burnt on the planet by the United States, by China, by India, or by other major countries. Donald Trump is still moving forward, ordering new weapons testing of the United States nuclear weapons, saying that this is in light of the posing threats that exist from Russia and China to the United States national security interests. Donald Trump has now ordered the United States military to consider bringing criminal charges against United States Senator Mark Kelly, along with several other members of the Congress, participated in preparing a video for public release, which was informing U.S. military forces that they should be keeping in mind the fact that they have the authority under the U.S. military rules of engagement to refuse illegal orders coming from their commanders. Donald Trump has publicly issued a statement saying that this is seditious activity, potentially punishable by death, and that he wants Mark Kelly prosecuted for sedition. Pope Leo XIV has now undertaken his first international travel. He is flying into Turkey, to Constantinople, to meet with Bartholomew, who is the reigning prelate for the Eastern Orthodox Church. This is a continuation of efforts that had been mounted by Pope Francis and earlier by John Paul to try to bring about some reconciliation between the Eastern Orthodox and the Orthodox Roman Church, to try to bring some solidified Christian position on a number of major topics, primarily having to do with peace in the world, in light of the fact that there are these extraordinarily dangerous situations underway right now in the Ukraine and still in the Middle East, these active assassinations being carried out by Israel, and the lack of a final solution on the peace treaty in the Middle East. And Pope Leo is going to be going directly to Lebanon, where the assassination was just carried out by the Israeli Defense Forces against the chief of staff of Hezbollah. There will be a reconvening of the Congress after the Thanksgiving break here that will go on until approximately December 22nd, when the final resolution will be made in this major new bill that the Trump administration has put forward, governing the payment of potential subsidies, federal subsidies to the Obama health care, also the major National Defense Authorization Act that will be passed on or about December 21st, without any provision for the disclosure of UFO information. We now know that Congressman Eric Burleson, who presently holds the brief on the UFO ET issue in the House Oversight Committee, has publicly stated that he is intending to introduce a major new standalone bill calling for the immediate turning over to the Congress of all of the UFO and ET information that is still being held by executive branch agencies in the intelligence community and in the military. This is a major news story that is going to be developing as soon as a final resolution is reached with regard to the disclosure of the Jeffrey Epstein files. You will remember that it is the House Oversight Committee's special task force on declassifying U.S. government secrets that are responsible for both the public release of the Epstein files and are demanding the public release of the UFO and ET information. These are the same people in Congress that are insisting upon the public disclosure of both of these bodies of information. The Age of Disclosure, the Dan Farah 2-hour documentary film, has set forth direct testimony of some 34 highly classified officers of the United States government, setting forth a series of very important assertions. What I want to do here today is I want to highlight a handful of these major disclosures that for the first time basically have been made here in this more or less official capacity of these high-ranking government officials. And I will address in the essay the kind of fuller implications of these. So I want to review for us today what some of these major revelations have been in this 2-hour documentary film called The Age of Disclosure. The first was an extraordinary acknowledgement now by Eric Davis. Eric Davis is one of the chief engineers of the extremely highly classified Special Weapons Program, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Special Project. It's a special, highly classified project in the United States Pentagon attempting to reverse engineer the technology in the recovered UFO craft for a weapons program of the United States. Eric Davis has now asserted for the first time anywhere publicly that he had a private conversation with President George H.W. Bush, in which President George Bush acknowledged that he had in fact been briefed on the UFO ET issue, and that he confirmed that he now knew that in fact our United States government was secretly engaged in bringing down UFO craft and attempting to reverse engineer their technology for the development of a new major weapons program on the part of the United States. Eric Davis asserts that in that conversation with President Bush Sr., President Bush Sr. acknowledged that in 1964, there was a UFO landing at the Holloman U.S. Air Force Base in New Mexico. 3 UFOs came to the base apparently by pre-arrangement and hovered over the tarmac, and one of these 3 UFOs landed on the tarmac, and a non-human UFO being exited the UFO and was met on the tarmac by 2 uniformed U.S. military officials and 2 plainclothes U.S. government officials. Now, I had been told about this event by Edgar Mitchell. Colonel Edgar Mitchell had told me about this a few years ago, actually, at a private meeting at IONS, the Institute for Noetic Sciences. He gave me the details of this and said that this non-human UFO being had met with these 4 government officials of the United States and had gone into a hangar there at Holloman Air Force Base in 1964 and had had a fairly protracted meeting with our government officials and telepathically communicated information to them, and that there was a official film that was taken of the landing and the exit from the UFO of this UFO being. We do not know yet whether or not the actual meeting that took place with this UFO representative, an ET person, was recorded as well. But Edgar Mitchell confirmed that that had happened, and now we have, for the first time, a high-ranking, highly classified United States government official confirming that he was informed directly by President George Bush Sr. that this event had happened. This is one of the very first confirmations of a direct face-to-face meeting between United States military and civilian officials with an actual non-human entity from a UFO. This was one of the most important of all the different revelations. Number 2 was the actual official acknowledgement that the 1947 Roswell event actually occurred, and that the United States government and the Air Force have been lying to the American people and to Congress, denying that there was a UFO landing at that particular instance back in July of 1947, and that 4 non-human bodies were recovered from that craft, and they were taken to Wright Field, which is now Wright-Patterson. This is information that has been asserted in the UFO community for decades now, and there are dozens and dozens of eyewitnesses who have been interviewed who have attested to the details of this crash of the UFO and the recovery of these bodies and the transport of these bodies to a Wright Field. But this is now the first official confirmation on the part of this by a number of people. Lou Elizondo had asserted this in the past and has, in fact, provided that information directly to Congress. The third very important piece of information here is extraordinarily important. Jay Stratton, who was the director of the Advanced Aerospace Special Weapons Application Project for the United States Pentagon, as way above top secret clearance, has now specifically testified in the documentary film, asserting that he has personally witnessed a confirmed non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft. He's been in the physical presence of such a craft, and he, with his own eyes, has seen one of the non-human beings that were occupants of this particular UFO. Every single one of these public acknowledgments by these highly classified government officials has been officially cleared by the United States Defense Department's Office of Pre-Publication Review and Security. So this means that this UFO documentary is actually a government-cleared report to the American public about this information. So this documentary film is itself part of the official United States government disclosure process. So this acknowledgement on the part of Jay Stratton that he has personally been the eyewitness of a non-human being in the presence of a confirmed non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft is an extraordinarily important acknowledgement on the part of the United States government that this is actually going on. In this documentary film, Lou Elizondo and Jay Stratton both have confirmed that the Legacy program was being actively concealed not only from Congress, but from the President of the United States on many occasions. And this Legacy program is the term that is used by the high-level officials of the United States government, referring to this way above top secret program that has been shooting down and capturing UFO craft and attempting to reverse engineer the technology, both the propulsion technology and the energy technology of these UFO craft. Presidents of the United States have been lied to by this Legacy program in the government. The United States Defense Department's Office of Pre-Publication Review and Security are explicitly just stating that the revelation of this information is not viewed as dangerous to the national security of the United States, but many people maintain that it does not constitute an official acknowledgement on the part of the United States executive branch that this is true. But the reality is that there is no conceivable way that this would be allowed to be stated by these officials in this documentary film were it not true, unless this was part of a even more vicious conspiracy on the part of the Defense Department to consciously continue to mislead the American public and Congress, which our New Paradigm Institute does not believe this is. We believe that this is, in fact, part of a conscious disclosure process that is going on, choreographed at the highest levels by the United States executive branch. The details were provided by Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon. Chris Mellon was the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in both the Democratic administration of Bill Clinton and the Republican administration of George W. Bush. And he has confirmed in this documentary film that the Legacy program did in fact exist and continues to exist today, and that it is overseen by the United States Central Intelligence Agency and by the United States Air Force primarily, and by the Department of Energy, and that the special security provisions that have been delegated by Congress to the Department of Energy to keep safe nuclear secrets has been being misused by the Department of Energy in the executive branch to conceal information about the UFO phenomenon and about the existence of this extraterrestrial civilization that surrounds us. And this is being asserted now in specific detail by Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. This is the first time that Lou Elizondo has explicitly stated that there are at least two different non-human species that have been encountered and recovered in these UFO craft that have been recovered by our United States government. And has asserted here that one of these species is in direct communication with the United States government. There is the direct acknowledgement by multiple witnesses that were in this documentary film. These UFOs have been actively engaged in shutting off United States nuclear missiles, as well as Russian missiles. This information had been provided by Captain Bob Salas earlier on a number of occasions in major press conferences, one, for example, at the National Press Club. But this is the first time that this has been explicitly, officially acknowledged by major U.S. military officials. And additionally, in this documentary film, this is the first time that it's been specifically reported that the United States government is in possession of specific intelligence data confirming that the tic-tac-shaped UFO that was recovered by the Soviet Union in 1989 was twice as large as the one that was recorded with regard to the USS Nimitz in the videos that were released back in December of 2017 by the New York Times. The United States government is in possession of official footage of an event that happened off Puerto Rico in 2013 when a Department of Homeland Security helicopter videoed a UFO object entering the ocean at full speed and continuing under the ocean, unencumbered by the water, and then exiting the ocean again, never altering its speed and with no splash. This is one of the more important revelations pertaining to the now USOs, the underwater submergible objects. Jay Stratton, the former director of the Advanced Weapons Program, focusing on the back engineering of the UFO objects by our United States Defense Department. He personally briefed the Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, who was the Secretary of Treasury under Donald Trump back in the first Trump administration. The Secretary of Treasury acknowledged that he wanted to have this information so that he could, in fact, advise the president about what type of economic impact might be generated if, in fact, the UFO information was made public. These are a series of at least 10 major public revelations that were made in the documentary film, The Age of Disclosure, which was premiered on Friday, November 21st. The New Paradigm Institute convened some 35 different showings of this documentary film on Friday evening, where large gatherings came together and were shown this film. I want to address the full implications of what has now been publicly revealed by these high-ranking U.S. government officials. This is the most authoritative official acknowledgement on the part of high-ranking U.S. government officials of the existence of life elsewhere in our universe. And not only life, but highly intelligent life, highly technologically developed life. It's an extraordinary, important revelation that you want to share with your friends and neighbors and all of your family members. Get them to see this documentary film, to watch this public revelation of this fact. It's an acknowledgement that members of these highly intelligent and highly technologically developed non-human species in our universe have actually come to our planet Earth, coming and going from our planet. Certain members of them have been in direct communication with officials of our United States government. This secret program is being actively and unlawfully and unconstitutionally concealed from the members of Congress and from a number of presidents even. This is the beginning of a process by means of which people are going to come to realize that these beings are, in fact, some of them literally billions of years more advanced than our human species is here on our planet, both technologically and from the point of view of an energy source. It is now estimated that the energy source that these UFO vehicles have that enable them to move from over 80,000 feet in altitude, literally in outer space, down to the surface of our oceans and dive under the water of our oceans with no splash and proceed at hundreds of miles an hour under the water, unimpeded by the water resistance. This one action that takes 7/10 of 1 second for them to come from outer space down to the surface of the ocean and submerge and travel into the water in the ocean. It requires an expenditure of energy more than the sum total of all of the energy generated by all 103 of the private nuclear power plants in our United States in a term of 1 full year. So this alternative energy source that exists has been revealed to you now by these high-level, highly classified U.S. government officials. This provides an alternative to the present burning of fossil fuels in the face of this failure of COP30. The 30th convening of this international gathering to try to figure out how our human family can cope with the burning of fossil fuels on our planet, which is generating the massive global climate change that we're all experiencing now. This piece of specific information about the availability of this energy source here on our planet is absolutely dispositive of how it is we can come to grips with and push back against global climate change, which is threatening not only the poorest of the people in the world, but our very human civilization itself. Now, another thing that's so important about this is that this demonstrates that we have access to communicating with extraterrestrial intelligent species who, in fact, have access to this capability to travel from one star system to another. Our human family is now potentially capable, if we can establish an adequate set of agreements with the members of this extraterrestrial civilization, that we may be able to acquire the capacity to travel not only to all the planets in our solar system, but we can travel to other star systems here in our galaxy. We do not know yet whether or not any of these extraterrestrial species actually come from outside of our Milky Way galaxy. But we do know that they come from other star systems here inside our galaxy, which means that we're potentially capable as a human species of acquiring the capacity to travel to other star systems and to have direct diplomatic and cultural exchanges with the members of these extraterrestrial civilizations. And so that we can acquire the knowledge of what it is that they have come to know and potentially being billions of years more experienced than our human family. And as we come back from the Thanksgiving holiday and eventually from the Christmas and New Year's holidays and the Hanukkah holidays, we have a second wind. We have a second wind here as the UFO Disclosure Group to get this statute passed and compel the turning over of all of this information into the hands of Congress. This 2-hour video is available for you on Amazon Prime. This is not a money-raising proposition. This is a public education undertaking, and our New Paradigm Institute will help facilitate you sponsoring one of these gatherings. You contact us at newparadigminstitute.org. We will put you in touch with the nearest Citizens for Disclosure group who can help you facilitate such a showing. Become members of Citizens for Disclosure. We have 35 chapters now, state chapters of the Citizens for Disclosure, and we are, by the end of the year, hoping to have all 50 states have state-level Citizens for Disclosure chapters. And once all 50 states have their state chapters in place, we're going to be organizing through those 50 state offices the establishment of Citizens for Disclosure working groups in each of the 435 congressional districts around the country. We want to make it absolutely clear that this is the undertaking of a massive citizens movement in the United States, that we at the New Paradigm Institute have been intimately involved in the efforts to get the UAP Disclosure Act that was passed by the United States Senate back in 2023 to get it inserted into the National Defense Authorization Act. While that has not succeeded, we now have the bill getting ready to be introduced by Congressman Eric Burleson, who is the holder of the portfolio on the UFO ET issue in the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. He is going to be introducing a new standalone bill. I want you to be fully cognizant of the fact that there is going to be this new statute, standalone statute, that is being introduced in Congress, and it is something that people can direct your communications to your own member of the House of Representatives and to your own 2 United States senators, insisting that they support this bill. We're going to be demanding that every single candidate for the House of Representatives agree to sign a pledge that if they are elected, they will in fact support the passage of this bill. And we want the people who are members of the Citizens for Disclosure to be active in insisting that any candidate for office sign this pledge, that they will, if elected, support the passage of this new bill that is being proposed now by Congressman Burleson. And very importantly, you will note that in this documentary film, Hal Puthoff, who is one of the highest level scientists that has been involved in having access to some of this information, he has called for making the energy source that is responsible for the propulsion and energizing of these UFOs, to have this made available to all the people of our planet, not to be owned by some private corporation for their own private personal profit, but to be made available to all the people of the world, so that we have this alternative energy source that can provide for irrigation, can provide for growing food, can provide for transportation, can provide for development all throughout our planet. This cannot be put into the private ownership of private corporations who are attempting to hold it back and just enrich their private shareholders. The United States government is directed to exercise eminent domain authority, which is available under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, to take into possession any of this information that needs to be made available as a public service. This is an extraordinarily important aspect of this bill that Congressman Burleson is going to be proposing, and it's an important provision of our New Paradigm Institute, and it should be an absolutely non-negotiable demand on the part of our citizens, not just for the citizens of our country, but to make it available for all the people of the world. And we're going to have to, as a separate matter, be undertaking a major campaign in the future to make sure that treaties are established among all of our nation states prohibiting the use of any of this technology for weapons development. But what we have to do, first of all, is we have to get all of this information and all of these materials into the possession of our United States government, so that decisions can be made about how rapidly to release all of this information to the American public and to the world, and so that we can, as a people, we can begin to make decisions as to what type of amendments need to be made to our economic structure, to our geopolitical structures of our relationships with other nation states on our planet, what the implications are going to be for our religious institutions and for our culture. That's why we want you to become members of the New Paradigm Institute, so you can participate in formulating these changes that are going to be needed to be undertaken by not only our government, but all the governments of our planet. Thank you very much for being with us. This is the Thanksgiving episode of Full Disclosure, brought to you by the New Paradigm Institute via Spectre Vision Radio.
To join the citizen movement for disclosure, visit newparadigminstitute.org/take action.